Well, there you have it. The most lethal World Cup of all time has finally drawn to a close. A fabulous festival of football on the pitch, packed full of shocks, upsets and drama, and an utter farce off the pitch, marred by duplicitousness, death and deceit. And exactly 1 month ago, on the day of the opening fixture between Qatar and Ecuador, I uploaded my World Cup predictions. As I said at the time, I don't make prediction videos, other than for the World Cup and the Euros, as I find them to be a little bit daft, and as you are about to discover, I don't have any greater powers of foresight, prophecy, or insight than anyone else. For those of you who didn't watch that video, I started out with 7 of my boldest predictions, what with this being HITC Sevens and all, before going pretty rapidly through my full group and knockout stage predictions, so that is also the order in which we will reflect, judge, and ultimately mock my predictions in this video as well. When I include clips from the original video, I will put a filter on them so that it's obvious, starting with my first prediction, which was 7th. Qatar get out their group. Well, we got off with a bit of a bang, which is presumably also how my life started, the bang there being me being dropped directly on my head, at least judging by this prediction. I did follow this prediction immediately up by saying this. I am starting with what I would imagine is my boldest prediction, so bold in fact that I'm not even sure that I believe it. Don't worry, saying things that you don't actually believe has never stopped anyone in the football YouTube space before. Yeah, you were right not to believe it, mate. They were absolutely rank. As Asian champions, playing on home soil, and having had their domestic league suspended in September, in order for them to have 2 whole months training together in preparation for this World Cup, Qatar were absolutely abysmal. Not only did they not get out of the group, they were the worst team of the tournament, making this just about the worst possible prediction to get us started. Unless, of course, I had backed Romelu Lukaku to win the Golden Boot and Ronaldo for the Golden Ball. Speaking of the Golden Boot, that brings us to my next prediction, which was 6th. Messi to win the Golden Boot. Alright, now we're rocking and rolling. I mean, it was still wrong, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't nearly as wrong as Qatar getting out of the groups, and at this stage, I'm taking that as a W. Here is what I had to say about this prediction. Argentina are a slightly strange team going into this World Cup, where they are the second favourites. As man for man, I don't think that they look that formidable, and there are weaknesses littered throughout their squad and starting 11, yet they have been outstanding over the last couple of years, and they have arguably the greatest footballer of all time in their ranks, who is coming into this World Cup, which is likely to be his last, absolutely banging form. I am alluding to Lionel Messi there, not Emiliano Martinez, just in case there is any confusion, and I think that he could well win his first World Cup Golden Boot. Messi has only ever scored 6 goals at the FIFA World Cup finals up to this point, despite having appeared at 4 tournaments, with 4 of those 6 goals coming in 2014, when Argentina reached the final. Messi is now playing deeper than ever before, which you might have thought would count against him in terms of scoring goals, but he has been in lethal form recently for PSG, and particularly for Argentina. In his last 3 games for Argentina, Messi has scored 9 goals. Argentina's group is eminently winnable, and their opening fixture against Saudi Arabia will present Messi and co with the opportunity to start their tournament with a bang. Hopefully it won't be too much of a conflict of interest for Lionel, given just how much money he has taken from the state of Saudi Arabia. Anyway, yeah, I think that Messi is a decent shout for the Golden Boot, and priced at around 12 to 1, and between the 3rd to 5th favourite with most of the bookies. Whilst I am hardly backing Matty Cash to win it here, I still think that it is bold enough to feature. I joked about Emiliano Martinez there, but he was actually very good, as Argentina's hero in 2 penalty shootouts, which ultimately saw him win the Golden Glove. Though, I don't personally think he was the best goalkeeper at the tournament. I thought Bono and Dominik Livakovic were both slightly better, but that is neither here nor there. Messi did indeed score in Argentina's opening game against Saudi Arabia from the penalty spot, but Argentina did not get off to a great start at all, losing the game 2-1, so perhaps I was right about that conflict of interest, especially given that it turned out to be the only game that they lost at the entire tournament. Ultimately, Messi scored 7 goals at the World Cup, becoming the first player to score in every round since the introduction of the round of 16, which was enough to put him second in the tournament scoring charts overall, just 1 goal behind Kylian Mbappe, whose hat-trick in the final against Argentina put him on 8. Right, moving on. Manuel Neuer to win the Golden Ball. Good God. Right, first of all, I'm just going to play you this. This is a little bit silly because if Lionel Messi does indeed win the Golden Boot at the 2022 World Cup, in all likelihood, he will also win the Golden Ball. Yeah, I know, I should have just left it at that, since Messi very nearly won the Golden Boot and did indeed win the Golden Ball, and then I'd be looking pretty smart right now. Instead, I will just play you my incoherent, rambling, and bizarre justification as to the improbable series of events that I thought could have led to Manuel Neuer winning the Golden Ball. If my prediction about Messi winning the Golden Boot is wrong, and my prediction about Germany not reaching the final is also wrong, there is a chance that my prediction about Manuel Neuer winning the Golden Ball could actually not be wrong. I told you prediction videos are rubbish. Well, yours certainly are. Germany didn't reach the final, so I was right about at least one thing there, but they went out in the group stage, so Neuer never stood a chance. Next, 4th, Cameroon to be catastrophic. Right, I am going to go back to pre-World Cup Alfie for his justification on this one, before we judge how well it has aged. This might not seem that outlandish. Most people don't expect Cameroon to win this World Cup, apart from Samuel Eto'o it would seem, and few would be shocked if they were to go out in the group stage. Cameroon have a very good goalkeeper in Andre Onana, a brilliant midfielder in Andre Frank Zambo Anguissa, and a fantastic front three in Vincent Aboubakar, Karl Toko Ekambi, and Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting, assuming that it is those three that start. On paper, they should give a good account of themselves and challenge Serbia and Switzerland to be runners-up in Group G behind Brazil. All of the noises coming out of the Cameroon camp ahead of this World Cup would worry me. Samuel Eto'o, who is the head of Cameroon's Football Federation, recently lambasted the team's players, despite them having done well to qualify for this World Cup, and he has poured pressure upon them by suggesting that failing to reach the World Cup final would constitute a failure. That is obviously a deeply stupid and unhelpful comment to make, and Cameroon are without a win in their last 3 internationals, in which they drew 1-1 with Jamaica, lost 1-0 to South Korea, and lost 2-0 to Uzbekistan. Cameroon have a history of self-destructing at their most recent World Cup appearance in 2014, when their own teammates got into a fight against Croatia, and they lost all 3 group games, conceding 9 goals and only scoring 1. I fear a repeat for them in Qatar, despite the talent within their squad, though I hope that I'm proven wrong. Well, after listening to that, I think that I was half right and half wrong, which is about 50% better than usual. There were some ruptures within the Cameroon squad, as I anticipated, the most notable of which involving Andre Onana, who was either sent home from Cameroon's World Cup squad or stormed out following a disagreement with manager Rigobert Song, and there was also some controversy around Vincent Aboubakar not starting in either of Cameroon's opening 2 matches. However, I was wrong about Cameroon being catastrophic on the pitch, since whilst they were dumped out in the group stage effectively after only 2 games, they didn't disgrace themselves in either of those matches, and they actually won a consolation 3 points in their final group game against a heavily rested Brazil team. Okay, let's see what we've got next. 3rd, Gavi to be the best young player. Hey, so this is wrong, admittedly, but he was still excellent. Here was my Gavi section in full at the time. The Young Player of the Tournament award is always an interesting one at the World Cup, previously won by the likes of Kylian Mbappe, Marc Overmars, and Pelé. There is an incredible raft of young talent heading to Qatar, whether that be Aurelien Tchouameni, Vinicius Jr., William Saliba, Pedri, Jamal Musiala, or Canada's starman Alphonso Davies. Naturally, as an Englishman, I hope that Jude Bellingham will be the young player of the tournament at this World Cup, and there is absolutely no doubt that he has the talent to take this tournament by storm and lay down a marker as a generational talent, still aged only 19. Spain are the third favourites going into this World Cup though, in which there is a good chance that Barcelona teammates Pedri and Gavi, and indeed Barcelona trio of Busquets, Pedri and Gavi, could all start. Busquets is a little too old to win the award at this stage, sorry Sergio, but aged 18, Gavi is still very much in contention. So again, Gavi didn't win the Best Young Player award, Enzo Fernandez did, probably deservedly so. He was excellent after coming in for Argentina, and particularly impressive in the final, but a lot of the players mentioned there also had really good tournaments. Gavi was excellent for Spain, Musiala was Germany's star man, and Bellingham was key for England. Another player who I actually would throw in there is Bukayo Saka, who was probably England's best player at the tournament, and having only recently turned 21, his performance against France is yet another stark reminder of just what a special talent he is. Next, second, Depay and Morata for the silver and bronze ball. I still think that there was some sound logic behind this one, but let's not beat around the bush, it was still horrendously wrong. This was my thesis for Depay at least. Memphis is likely to start for the Netherlands as the most advanced player in a sort of 3-2-3-2 formation under Louis van Gaal, where he and Cody Gakpo have been the Netherlands' most potent goal threats in recent internationals. Both are capable of scoring a hatful of goals in Qatar, especially given that the Netherlands are in Group A, which is the weakest group at the finals, and Memphis has a fantastic goal-scoring record at international level. Now, in all fairness, and this is fairness for myself a month ago that I'm pleading for here, Memphis wasn't fit to start the first two games for the Dutch, which didn't exactly help this prediction, with his only goal coming in the round of 16 against the United States. Meanwhile, Gakpo did score in all three group games and was outscored by only 4 players at the tournament. Alvaro Morata also scored 3 goals, which puts him level with Gakpo as the joint 5th highest scoring player at the World Cup, behind only Mbappe, Messi, Julian Alvarez and Olivier Giroud. And last but not least, first, Serbia to be quarter-finalists. Quite possibly the worst prediction of the lot. Let's not even dwell on this one for long, given that Serbia didn't end up winning a single game. I did say in my predictions that this was solely if both Mitrovic and Vlahovic were fully fit, which they weren't. Vlahovic wasn't even fit enough to start in Serbia's opening 2 games, and I also said that if either of them weren't fit, I would back Switzerland to get out of the group ahead of them. But, I won't try and salvage things any more than that. I am perfectly happy to chalk this one down as a total and utter shambles and move on to my full group and knockout stage predictions where I'm sure things will get much, much better. Or maybe not. We already know that I ballsed things up with Qatar, and Senegal, who I had down in 3rd place, ended up as group stage runners-up before losing to England in the round of 16. I got the top 2 right in Group B, with England pretty comfortably topping the group in the end, and I always fancied the United States to have too much quality, especially within the final third, for Wales and Iran, who I did get the wrong way round, with Iran ultimately finishing 3rd. I said in that video that it was a tough call between Mexico and Poland for 2nd place in Group C, and so it proved. Going right down to goal difference, which Poland edged by just a single goal, rendering me wrong once again, since I went with Mexico. Group D was probably the one that I was most confident about pre-tournament, and therefore the one that surprised me most at the World Cup, both in terms of just how poor Denmark performed, but also how well Australia played, with a very limited squad. I must apologise To all Aussie subscribers for ever having doubted you, and I am saddened that your World Cup success has been dampened by post-World Cup events back home. And now that brings us to... oh no. Oh dearie dear. Oh dear. I think we're going to have to hear what I had to say about this absolute horror show at the time. Spain are big favourites to win Group E, but I think that Germany are the strongest team in that group, and that is reflected in my predictions. There is always one major upset in the group stage, or at least one, and it could well come in Group E if either Japan or Costa Rica were to cause a storm. I'm not brave enough to predict it, I know, what a coward, and it might not be in that group, but I think that either Group E or Group H are ripe for a real shock. Well, I really ought to have been braver since there was indeed a shock, and it came courtesy of Japan, who beat both Spain and Germany en route to topping the group. Meanwhile, Germany, despite having the same results as Spain, did not attain those results by the same scoreline, so they were dumped out in the group stage by virtue of goal difference. And, well, it looks like we might need a recap on Group F as well. Everyone seems to think that Group F will go Belgium, Croatia, Morocco and then Canada, which is understandable, but I think that there is potential for something crazy to happen in this group. Croatia reached the final last time out and are in great form, having won their last 4 games against Denmark, twice, France and Austria, yet I've got them finishing last. It makes no sense whatsoever, and I can't justify or explain it at all. It will almost certainly be wrong then, but for some reason, I've only got them picking up a solitary point. And Canada, who the ELO rankings have as the least fancy team to get out of the groups of anyone at this World Cup, well, naturally, I've got them finishing as runners-up in their first World Cup since 1986, where they lost all 3 games. Well, I suppose I was right about there being fireworks and upsets. I was just spectacularly wrong about who would be on either side of them, as Belgium collapsed and Morocco were outstanding. Group G I was sort of right about though, solely because of this. I've already said that I think Cameroon could be catastrophic, and I think who progresses between Switzerland and Serbia will come down to whether Serbia's front 2, Vlahovic and Mitrovic, are fully fit. Assuming that they are, I think that they'll come out on top. And obviously, if they're not, then Switzerland. And finally, for the group stage at least, South Korea surprised me in Group H, where I had them finishing 4th. Meanwhile, Diego Alonso scuppered Uruguay's chances, in my eyes at least, particularly by not properly utilising Georgian de Arrascaeta. From this point on, it all gets a little bit silly since several of these games never actually happened, but nonetheless, the only round of 16 tie that I predicted that did actually happen was the Netherlands versus the United States, which the Netherlands did indeed win. See, if they happen, I get them right. It's hardly my fault if reality just messed up in the group stage. In the quarter-final, I was right about Brazil going out in the quarters, a prediction which received quite a bit of kickback down below in the comments, and don't worry commenters, we are coming to you soon, though I was badly wrong about who it was that would beat them. And I am going to just play a quick clip of what I had to say about that France versus England game, which obviously is another one that did actually come to fruition. Right, don't ask, because even I can't explain it, but I said in my England video that I think England will go out in the quarterfinals, where they will most likely meet a super team, and that is still what I believe. Yet, just when I was doing this predictor, and it happened to be England versus France, call it blind partisanship or utter delusion, but I just felt like England could beat this France team, so I clicked on them. Well, utter delusion might have been a bit extreme. It was a very close game which I felt England actually edged, but Harry Kane blasted his penalty over the crossbar, and that was all she wrote for the 3 lines. That means that I was only right about one of my 4 semi-finalists, which isn't great, but they are the most important ones, and I will just leave you with my final prediction. It would seem Lionel Messi will finally get his hands on the FIFA World Cup trophy, and Argentina will win their first World Cup since 1986. Well, would you look at that? Inspired stuff. Genius. A true visionary. At the end of the day, the only prediction that really matters is the winner, isn't it? Who cares about the group stage and the bronze ball, for Christ's sake? And when it mattered, I truly nailed it. Alright, maybe it doesn't totally salvage predicting Germany to reach the semis, but it is fine margins in football and particularly at major tournaments. Right, anyway, that is me ritualistically humiliated. Now it is all of your turns. Mr. Reese had Denmark topping Group D and reaching the semis, which I wouldn't have found all that outlandish at the time, but hasn't aged great. UraniX was convinced that Portugal would win it, and that Ronaldo would, quote, show me. He did show me something, but I'm not sure that it was what UraniX had in mind. Sam Schreier went even harder than me on endorsing Germany, backing them to potentially win the World Cup. The Mr. Young was as pessimistic about the Socceroos as I was, and must have been delighted to be proven so emphatically wrong, and Tris2000 had an absolute nightmare, predicting a final of Denmark versus Brazil, with Brazil thrashing the Danes at the Lusail Stadium. It just goes to show that predicting the outcome of football matches is a fool's errand, and we are all as clueless as each other. Alright, maybe I am especially clueless, but there isn't all that much in it. Thank you all very much as ever for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it. If that was the case, feel free to hit the like button. Let me know your thoughts if you have any down below in the comments, and of course make sure that you are subscribed and have notifications turned on for HITC Sevens. You can also find me personally on either Twitter or on Instagram via the username @HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so. Cheers.